It's not, no.
Was editor-in-chief of the, I didn't know that about Barack Obama.
Yeah.
That's tremendous.
So I must admit, I'm very impressed by that. I don't know what I'll do in terms of voting in the fall, but I am impressed by the fact that Barack was the editor-in-chief of the Harvard Law Review.
Absolutely. Yes, you were down here in January and were able to see the presidential debates, the excitement there in the Palace Theater. Of course, it was not only Senator Obama at the time, but also Senator Clinton and Senator Edwards there up on the stage. What was that like, experiencing the debates live time there at the Palace Theater?
Well, there were about 2,200 people sitting there, and I don't know, it was an overwhelming experience. I thought all three of the candidates were very able. All of them were eloquent. All of them had some interesting things to say.
Right.
So it was a great experience.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think that Edwards was going to get it, but I must admit I probably would have bet on Hillary at that particular time.
Is that right? Yeah.
Just
yeah.
in terms of the odds.
Mm-hmm. A couple weeks before your wife, my mother, had come down for the Republican event, the Republican debates there at the convention center, and you made it down for the Democratic one. Would you have liked to have swapped seats with her?
No, I'm perfectly happy the way it was.
Right.
I frankly would not have put any money on McCain winning. At that time, I was rather surprised that he pulled up and wound up far ahead of the others.
Right, very definitely.
But I don't understand politics anyway.
Yeah, well, that's a big topic and another episode in and of itself. Go ahead. Yeah.
Apropos of politics, I did go to a very moving event recently. Senator Jesse Helms died, and I went to his funeral, which was a well-attended event with about 900 people in the church. And although I was not of his political party and did not agree with him on all major issues, I must say I was impressed by the fact that he had rendered such extensive service to the people of North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And it was nice to commemorate that service.
Mm-hmm. Many people in North Carolina would say to many people in North Carolina, not to all people, but hopefully he was trying to serve all.
Oh, yes.
Hopefully he was trying to serve all people.
And as an individual, he was just apparently a wonderful person and, cared for the individual constituents, mm-hmm. which is important.
A good husband, father, and grandfather. Of course, his grandson, fraternity brother of mine at Wake Forest, and a great guy, and only could say great things. Rob Knox could only say great things about his grandfather, that he really cared, even though he surely had a lot of folks who didn't like his views and a lot of residents in North Carolina who didn't think he represented their interest at all. So clearly a mixture of emotion there, as most politicians possibly evoke emotions on both sides.
Yeah. We've had a very interesting incident in North Carolina concerning a state employee who refused to lower the flag to half-mast.
I know.
That's created a lot of controversy.
Right, even with a Democratic governor, Mike Easley, who said you are going to lower your staff whether you like, lower your flag whether you like his opinions or not. The guy ultimately lost his job. He
lost his job. I read a very interesting article in one of the local papers in North Carolina, written by Professor Dan Pollitt, a highly recognized scholar in constitutional law at UNC. And Dan takes a position that was wrongful for him to lose his job. I don't know about the merits of that, but some interesting issues.
Right. An order from the governor is, it's tough to know whether or not you follow the order or not.
What do you do if your conscience tells you something different?
Sure.
Which way do you go?
Yeah, that's a good point. We talked about growing up in Durham. What is it about Durham that caused you to come back, other than, of course, your parents, as you said, you got a place to practice when you got out of law school? Did you ever think about living anywhere else?
Well, I was in Washington some at various times, working up there, although I always maintained my residence in Durham. Durham is a very interesting city. It's near it's the home of one of the great universities, Duke University.
Right.
Close to two other major universities, UNC, which I attended at one point, and North Carolina State.
Right.
So in terms of intellectual environment, things of that sort, It's and climate. It's just a great place to be.
Mm-hmm.
A nice community, interesting tradition. One interesting aspect of the tradition is that the Civil War, we say, ended right outside Durham at the Bennett place.
I thought it was Appomattox.
That's what they say in Virginia, but General Johnson surrendered to General Sherman about a week after Lee surrendered to Grant. And Johnson had approval from the Southern legislature to surrender. I mean, that was the end of the Civil War.
Lee surrendered to Grant there at the Bennett place.
Johnson surrendered.
Or Johnson, yeah.
Surrendered to Sherman.
To Sherman there.
Two interesting aspects of it. My father, in 1923, when he was in the legislature, took the initiative in having the Bennett place, where the surrender was negotiated, having that become a state park. And they have a monument there which has two pillars and an arch. And that word, one word on the arch is unity.
Yes.
And that is the hallmark of the Bennett place, where the North and South came back together. And the two generals who had fought for years in the Civil War against each other became good friends in negotiating the surrender. And ultimately, when Sherman died, Johnson was an honorary pallbearer at his funeral. It was in very cold weather. He stood outside in the snow and ice, got pneumonia, and died.
No, Johnson was a pallbearer and got pneumonia and died afterwards. No. Wow.
Interestingly, I've suggested that some of the presidential candidates who are stressing unity come to the Bennett place and stand there with that monument and say, this is symbolic of the unity that we need. Come back together just as the North and South did in 1865.
That would be a powerful image, a great location to stress that. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Hopefully someone will take you up on it. That's exactly right. You know, a lot going on right now, both in Durham and there at Duke Law School. We highlight Duke since not only did you take the bar in North Carolina when you finished in law school, you came on back, you were planning on joining your parents' firm, but an opening cropped up there at Duke Law School, and you joined their law faculty, if I'm correct, in 1950?
That's right. There was an opening. The University Council knew my father, asked if I'd be willing, would be interested in filling the opening, and I did. Ironically, I knew that I wouldn't be there very long, because the day I graduated from law school, the North Koreans came into South Korea, and there was big trouble, and I'd been just a little too young to serve in World War II, so I knew that I would be up for grabs in the Korean War,
right,
and that I would be leaving to go on active duty. But anyway, I started there and taught for a year, had a great time, had some fine students, and then went on active duty. And I didn't think I'd be back, but I started at age 22, which was probably the youngest law faculty member they've had.
Well, I've read it many times that by far is clearly the youngest law the faculty member ever hired. They're age 22. I mean, most folks are just finishing college dead around that same age, let alone law school and let alone joining a faculty.
Well, I got off to a good start, I guess.
You obviously
Fast
did,
start.
yeah. And the way you were able to do that, is that through, you skipped some grades in 3rd, 8th, and 11th, I've heard, something around that. But
I don't know what I skipped. I started a little bit early, skipped the 8th grade, skipped the 11th grade, and then finished college in 3 years.
Right. Can't remember everything, Dad.
It gets confusing.
You know you skipped a few years there. That's and of course that did help speed things along. But joining and then rejoining 5 years later, am I correct? Back in 1956.
Yeah, I came back and started practicing with Mother and Dad, and then I got a call one day from the dean. He wanted to know if I'd fill in for a semester, and I did, and stayed from then in one form or another right up to the present. And they're still letting me do some seminars and classes, and I have a great time.
You're still teaching 1st, 2nd, and 3rd year students?
Not first.
Is that right? Criminal law, you're no longer teaching?
I haven't taught that for about a year. So.
Okay. Right.
So it's now second and third.
How exciting. And of course your ability to, and we'll get into the criminal law aspect or criminal procedure, the ability to highlight that. And also we want to talk a little bit about the White Collar Crime Symposium, as well as the reentry project and what you've been working on with that. Would you be willing to come back? We're running out of time, I'm sorry to say, but would you be willing to come back and be with us tomorrow?
Absolutely. I'm sure I've been a little long-winded, but if you'll give me another chance, I'll try to cover some other things.
Very definitely, very definitely. Thanks so much for being with us this morning, Dad.
Great to be with you, Greg.
Absolutely. Stay tuned for a little more Carolina People with Robinson Oscar Everett coming up next. So much of his life has been focused on military justice and the needs of service men and women all over the world. There's so much more to Robinson Everett than just that, and we'll get into a little bit of that tomorrow, the Center on Law, Ethics, and National Security, what it was like practicing with his mother and father. The excitement there is the triple family, the first triple family swearing in the U.S. Supreme Court's history back in 1954, and so many other exciting aspects of his life. There's a lot more to Robinson Everett than what we just got into the last 30 minutes. Come back tomorrow for part 2 of the Honorable Robinson Oscar Everett. Dad, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for the chance to be here.
Yeah.